Doris Day was known for her innocent beauty, kind smile, and cheerful personality. This image made everyone think she had the perfect Hollywood life, but it was so far from the truth. After her death at the age of 97 due to pneumonia, it was revealed that surprisingly, she wasn't with a friend, family, or even any staff as she breathed her last. She was alone. This shocking leaked secret led to more secrets about her life and death getting revealed by her close friends and even next door neighbors 5 years after her passing. It turns out that there was more to her many failed marriages and relationships than meets the eye. Enough to make you question why someone so kind had to go through so much. Watch this video until the end to know the heartbreaking truth of a woman who only ever wanted to be a good wife.
So I beg of you, if you have room in your home and room in your heart, go to your city shelter today and adopt a pet.
Doris Day was a very talented actress and singer, achieving great success in her career. She recorded 800 hit songs and starred in 39 movies. Even with her professional success, she always felt something was missing in her personal life. She never found her true love and only had hurtful experiences with men. This was the biggest regret that she had in her entire life. But before we get into how she was a victim of such a sad fate, let's go back in time to when her tragedies really began, her childhood. Doris Day was known for her happy and cheerful personality, but her early life wasn't always happy. She was born Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff in 1922 in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was the youngest of three children, but her older brother passed away when she was just a baby. Doris Day's parents were both children of immigrants from Germany. Her mother took care of their home, while her father was a music teacher and choir leader, but he was a quiet man who wasn't around much, so Doris and her main sibling didn't get to see him often. Doris Day wrote in her book that her parents' constant arguing was so bad that it might have been better for them to not be together. Her parents would fight all the time, even when her father was home, which wasn't often. When Doris was 12 years old, her parents finally separated. Doris Day's father was having affairs with other women, including one of her mother's closest friends. Doris found out about this in a very painful way. One night, while her parents were hosting a big party, Doris saw and heard her father doing things he shouldn't have been doing. She was so upset that she hid her face in her bed sheets, but she couldn't block out the sounds of her father's infidelity. Doris Day found solace in dance during this difficult time. As a young girl, she persistently asked her mother to enroll her in dance classes and eventually began tap dancing in kindergarten. She later explored ballet and acrobatic dancing, developing a deep passion for all forms of dancing. Dancing became her ultimate passion, and she aspired to make it her career until a devastating car accident in the 1930s shattered her dreams. Doris Day's dedication to dance didn't falter. She even participated in a contest at her dance school, Hessler's, where the winner would receive 25 free acrobatic dance lessons. The challenge was to hold a handstand for an extended period, and Doris was determined to emerge victorious. She practiced tirelessly at home, walking and climbing stairs in her hands for weeks. Her perseverance paid off, and she took home the first prize. Things seemed to be getting better for Doris. When Doris Day was 15, she and her dance partner won a contest and earned $500. This success convinced their parents to move to Los Angeles to help them pursue their careers. Just before the move, Doris and her friends decided to go out for dinner. They got into a car and headed back home on a rainy night. Unfortunately, they didn't see a train coming towards them, and it crashed into their car. Doris was badly hurt, especially her right leg. This accident changed everything, and her dreams of becoming a professional dancer were put on hold. After her devastating car accident, Doris Day felt hopeless and sad. She had to return to school using crutches, which made her feel like a different person. She used to be active and full of energy, but now her classmates were treating her with pity, which she hated. To help her cope with her sadness, her mother signed her up for singing lessons and got her a dog named Tiny. But tragically, Tiny caused even more pain when he ran into the street and got hit by a car. Doris felt responsible for his death and was consumed by loneliness. She wrote about this experience in her book, saying it was a very difficult time for her and that the guilt she felt was just too much to bear. Doris Day's guilt over Tiny's death stayed with her forever. As an adult, she dedicated her life to helping animals, rescuing stray dogs, and helping them find new homes. Even in her retirement, she continued this work, driven by her passion for animal welfare. At just 16, Doris Day started singing at a club in Cincinnati, where she met her future husband, Al Jordan. Despite initial reservations, Jordan was won over by Day's charm, and they married 3 years later. But their relationship turned sour when Jordan became violently abusive and possessive, even attacking her when she refused to get an abortion. The marriage ended in divorce, and at 17, Day joined the Les Brown Band, beginning her touring career. It seemed her career was going well, but her personal life just wouldn't let her enjoy her financial success. How? Well, you're about to find out. Doris Day married Al Jordan, a trombone player who was 6 years older than her, and they had a son named Terry together. Unfortunately, throughout their marriage, Jordan was physically and emotionally abusive and violent. They eventually separated in 1943. Jordan's struggles with depression and addiction ultimately led to his tragic suicide. Day's second marriage to George Weidler, a saxophonist, was thankfully free from violence, but it still ended in divorce. Weidler realized that Day's career was taking off and that she was on the verge of becoming a huge star, and he didn't want to be left behind. According to Day's autobiography, Weidler ended their marriage with a letter, leaving her to continue her journey to stardom alone. In 1951, Doris Day thought she had finally found her soulmate when she married Martin Melcher, a film producer. He became her manager and played a big role in her success, producing many of her most popular movies. But their relationship didn't start traditionally. Martin Melcher was already married to singer Patty Andrews when he met Doris Day in the late 1940s. Not minding this, they began a romantic affair, which eventually led to Melcher leaving his wife for Day. By 1951, Day and Melcher had tied the knot, making it her third marriage. In 1956, Doris Day ran into her father at a train station in Cincinnati, Ohio, after many years of separation. He invited her to visit his bar, which surprised her because it was located in a predominantly black neighborhood. When she went to the bar, she met Lavinia, her father's fiancée, who was black. Doris was happy to see the positive change in her father, but their reunion was short-lived. A few years later, Doris invited her father to her aunt's house, but he left Lavinia in the car and didn't bring her inside. The atmosphere was awkward, and nobody, including Doris, asked Lavinia to join them. After a brief visit, Doris's father left, and she never saw him again. She only waved at Lavinia, who was still sitting in the car. This was the last time Doris and her father saw each other. She thought it would be the last time the universe would remove someone she deemed important from her life, but it was actually only the first. Moving on from that, Doris Day became a famous movie star, even getting nominated for an Academy Award for a role in Pillow Talk in 1959. She started her career in musical comedies, but it was her romantic comedies from the late 1950s to the mid-1960s that made her a household name. Even with her success, Doris Day felt trapped by her girl-next-door image. She was often typecast in roles that reinforced the stereotype, and she sometimes played along with it. Interestingly, she was offered the iconic role of Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate, but turned it down because it went against her values. The role eventually went to Anne Bancroft, who made it famous. When Doris Day married Martin Melcher, he adopted her son Terry, and they were together until Melcher's sudden death from a heart attack in 1968. Doris was devoted to him until the end, but after he passed away, she made a shocking discovery. She found out that Melcher and his business partner, Jerome Bernard Rosenthal, had mismanaged her finances and spent all of her $20 million fortune, leaving her deeply in debt. Doris Day was devastated by this betrayal and took legal action against Rosenthal in February 1969. According to a Forbes article from 1974, Rosenthal had made questionable investments without keeping proper records, essentially squandering Day's money without her knowledge or consent. This hurt Doris a lot. She had trusted her husband and his partner to manage her finances wisely. Doris Day took legal action against Rosenthal and even had to use law enforcement to seize his files. While battling him in court, she also starred in the CBS sitcom The Doris Day Show to pay off her debts. After a long and difficult legal fight, She finally won her case in 1974 and was awarded over $22 million. Meanwhile, Doris Day's son, Terry Melcher, had a surprising connection to Charles Manson, the infamous cult leader. Little did they know that this connection would later lead to something horrible that would forever be remembered in history. Thanks to his mother, Terry avoided a tragic fate like that of Sharon Tate, who was brutally murdered by Manson's followers. According to Good Vibrations, Terry met Manson through Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys in 1968. Wilson introduced Manson to industry events, where he met Terry, a record producer. At first, Dennis Wilson befriended Charles Manson, but later wanted to distance himself from the sinister stranger. Manson then turned his attention to Terry Melcher and tried to persuade him to sign a record deal. Terry even allowed Manson to audition, but he was not impressed and rejected him. Unfortunately, Manson had already discovered where Terry lived, at 10050 Celio Drive in Los Angeles. This was a dangerous coincidence, as Terry was already going through a tough time. His adoptive father, Marty Melcher, had passed away in 1968, leaving Terry emotionally and financially devastated. Marty's shady business dealings with his lawyer had left Terry broke, and he was struggling to cope with the loss of his father. After Marty's death, Doris Day moved out of their shared home because it held too many painful memories. She asked her son Terry to move into her beach house to keep an eye on it and prevent vandalism. Terry left 10050 Celio Drive in 1969, and Sharon Tate and her husband Roman Polanski moved in, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them. Doris Day's personal life was also filled with big secrets and surprises that weren't revealed until after her death. Her friends revealed the secret that she had a hidden love affair with actor Patrick O'Neill, who appeared on her TV show, despite him being married. She was also close friends with Rock Hudson, who was hiding his true identity at the time. By the late 1970s, Doris Day stepped away from the spotlight and dedicated herself to rescuing and caring for hundreds of animals at her Carmel mansion. Her iconic image endured. Her remarkable career spanned 2 decades, from the mid-1940s to her final film role in 1968. In 1973, Doris Day decided to leave show business, a time when movies were becoming more adult-oriented. Some people, like critic Pauline Kael, had already started to see her as old-fashioned, calling her the typical American middle-aged woman. But Doris Day wasn't worried about what others thought. She still believed in finding true love and married Barry Comden, a younger man, in 1976. Although they divorced in 1981, Doris Day continued to focus on helping animals through charity work. Doris Day's passion for animal welfare led her to create a TV show in 1985 called Doris Day's Best Friends, which publicly proved her advocacy work. She dedicated most of her time and energy to this cause, showing that her retirement from show business didn't mean she was done making a difference. In July, Doris Day invited her old friend Rock Hudson to be the first guest on her new TV show. At the time, Hudson had just revealed that he had AIDS, a serious illness that was making him very weak. Not letting his poor health stop him, Hudson kept his promise to Doris and appeared on the show. Doris remembered how tired and sick he looked on the set, but she didn't want to make a big deal about it. She just gave him a big hug and tried to make him feel better. Sadly, their emotional goodbye after the show was the last time Doris would see her dear friend. Rock Hudson passed away just a few months later, in October, because of complications from his illness. Over the years, Doris Day struggled to shake off her wholesome image, which the media had created. In 1999, she was surprisingly left off the American Film Institute's list of the top 50 greatest screen legends. Film critic David Thompson lamented this oversight, calling it ignorance to view Doris Day as old-fashioned. Behind her iconic status, Doris Day faced many personal tragedies, including the loss of her son Terry Melcher in 2004. He was 62 and had battled melanoma. According to those close to her, Doris Day became more reclusive after his death. The difficult times continued for Doris Day when a car accident occurred near her property just 11 days after her son's death. The victim sued her, and they eventually settled out of court. These series of disturbing problems took a toll on Doris Day's mental and physical health, and she was rarely seen in public after that. With her signature optimism, Doris Day showed that even in the toughest times, she would always find a way to come back up. Doris's tragedy didn't end with her optimism. Doris Day spent the next few decades living a peaceful life, away from the spotlight. Although she released an album in 2011, she mostly focused on her personal life. According to her longtime handyman, Sidney Wood, Doris Day became a recluse and dedicated her life to her many pets. Doris Day passed away on May 13, 2019, at the age of 97, due to pneumonia. Her death was announced by the Doris Day Animal Foundation, which she had founded. Respecting her wishes, there were no funeral services or public memorials, but her friend Leah Price spoke out after her death, contradicting rumors that Doris Day was a recluse. Price said Doris Day simply enjoyed her peaceful life, loved her home, pets, and fan mail, and remained actively involved until her passing. After Leah Price spoke about Doris Day's life, people started to wonder if those close to her had ulterior motives. Sidney Wood, her former handyman, had previously stated that he worked for her out of love, not for payment. This raised questions about the intentions of those around her. Her neighbors also reported rarely seeing her, which added to the mystery surrounding her life. After Doris Day's death in 2019, her grandson, Ryan Melcher, came forward, revealing that he was unable to visit his grandmother in her final years. This increased speculation about the circumstances surrounding her life and who was controlling her access to the outside world. It seemed that there was more to the story than initially met the eye, and the whole truth about Doris Day's life will probably always remain a mystery. Ryan Melcher, Doris Day's grandson, shared a personal experience on Facebook about being prevented from visiting his grandmother for many years. He remembered one time in 2004, after his father Terry Melcher's death, when his grandmother invited him to visit, but her business manager intervened, demanding to know why Ryan wanted to see her, and eventually blocking the visit. The manager used Ryan's parents' divorce as a reason, leaving Ryan feeling hurt and confused. Suddenly, things took a surprising turn. Doris Day's publicist, Charlie Cullen Walters, claimed that it was actually Doris Day's decision to not see her grandson. This contradicted Ryan's account, raising questions about who was controlling access to Doris Day. Later, her manager revealed that her fortune was being used to fund her animal welfare organization, the Doris Day Animal Foundation. But what's your opinion on Doris Day's tragic life? And do you still listen to the Icon's music? We would love to know in the comments. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our next updates.